Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I have returned. Greg here once again with NECR New England Concert Reviews, and today we welcome yet another stellar artist. He is the bass player and vocalist from the legendary rock band Styx, and he is none other than someone who I like to call the magical one, Mr. Ricky Phillips.
I like that. I'd hate to stop you, but this is too good. I mean, I'm loving this. Go.
Well, I'd like to take a brief moment just to say thanks for taking the time to speak with us here at NECR. Hello, it's an extreme pleasure. How are you, and what is going on?
Well, this has been quite the beginning of the summer tour. We've been out with Joan Jett and Tesla, and we started off on the West Coast, kind of worked our way up across the country. We're on a little bit of a break now after being a month out, and it's been a busy year in Styx World, but everything's great. Everything is, I can't even tell you how the show itself. I like to tell my friends I say Genesis big when I talk about the production values of this staging, because it's kind of like that. Genesis was the first band that blew my mind when I saw how big, just not the talent of the band, but also the staging and the time that they put into presenting a cool show. And we're kind of doing that this year. It's been a fun summer. Joan is, of course, firing on all her cylinders. Great band, and she brings it, man. I always forget how many hit songs that she's got. And Tesla is a hard act to follow. They come out with both guns blazing at the beginning of the night and kind of set the bar high for us to come out and do what we do.
Nice, yeah. I love them both.
Yeah.
Styx is one of the most euphoric and mind-altering bands that has ever materialized in the music world. You are right there with ELO in my book, and the band is stronger than ever today. And you've just come out with yet another album, and it is called The Mission, and it is a ride like no other. According to a couple pieces of press I received, and I quote, "The Mission is an orally adventurous 43-minute thrill ride that chronicles the trials, tribulations, and ultimate triumphs of the first manned mission to Mars in the year 2033. I don't want to read your entire synopsis on The Mission, but the beginning says, and I quote, "Phillips is impressed with how harmoniously the album came together. I've done a lot of sessions over the years and played on songs and albums that have had big productions and gone all the way to #1, as you stated earlier. But The Mission was by far the easiest, most seamless recording project I've ever been a part of. Can you elaborate a little more with The Mission, and what was it like for you personally making this CD?"
Well, we have the great fortune of performing as a section. I'm the new guy in the band, and for 15 years we've been on the road almost every year, 200 days a year. And that translates to anywhere from 100 to 130 shows a year. And so we have, there's something that happens when we get on a stage together, we get in the studio together. We don't talk about a lot of stuff. Of course, there's conversations galore when you're making a record, but they might be before the recording starts, they might be during. But when we get together, there's just some kind of chemistry we have where things that unfold are magical. There's things that, of course, you prepare for, and then there's things that just happen because the five of us are playing together. And I've never really had the luxury of that. I've worked with amazing musicians, people that I will always admire and have learned a lot from. Producers, musicians, engineers. I produce myself, so it's like I owe a lot of people from a very young age for a lot of things that I've learned. But on The Mission, the music is so well written, and it was something that I forget even being in the studio. It happened so quickly. I got there, I used all my old vintage, not all of them, but I brought about 7 or 8 vintage basses that from the 50s and 60s to kind of keep the sound of Styx, where a lot of these iconic songs and albums that people are familiar with, that this isn't a departure, it's a continuation of what the Styx legacy is. And everyone was really, really on board with approaching it that way. So now you get in the studio, we're in a great studio, Blackbird Studios in Nashville, Tennessee, and we recorded on 2-inch tape. For people who may understand this or may not, we have two 2-inch tape machines ganged together with synchronizers so that we could record everything down live. And then once we had basically all the drums cut, we transferred everything to digital. But we have that sound sound of tape recording that has started in the 70s with Styx, and made it sound and feel as if it were a continuation from Pieces of Eight or the Grand Illusion recordings. And I don't know what else to say. You can stop me right here and ask more questions, but it just really, I guess from the original question, it just kind of unfolded so seamlessly and so easily. Conversations were short, and we instantly went in and performed or did something with very little discussion. Of course, we do have a lot of attention to detail before we go in. This is a band we don't leave. There's not a lot of mystery. We want to make sure anything that we could cross while we're in the studio and when the red light's on for record, that we've already discussed that. So there's a lot of things that did happen, say, in pre-production, but once we went in and started to lay things down, we just relied on each other's chemistry, the way we do work together, and it just, I couldn't be happier with the end result. Everybody's performance is just, A+.
Yes, definitely. I have to agree. The Mission delivers with many great and amazing tracks. I love the entire CD.
Thanks, man.
I like the story of it. And to me, the Mission, and you just hit the nail on the head, because to me, it gives me the feel of the early days of Styx, especially with Gone, Gone, Gone. What is the story behind that track, and what is your own personal interpretation of that song?
Well, Gone, Gone, Gone kind of kicks it off. So it's basically giving you the sense of excitement and the not knowing of what's coming, but being positive about it. It's that send-off into a solar system that has been unexplored on this mission to Mars. And as Tommy Shaw explains, what makes this interesting, because concept albums really can be kind of corny, and Styx has been known to have experience with concept albums in the past. But what gives it heart is that this is really not about the fact that we will, in our lifetime, there will be a mission to Mars, and that's why all of a sudden it became a little bit exciting to us. But this story is about the people. This is about the people, and there's some backstory, and people who care to read that can really get involved in these songs and realize that there's a relationship between not just people who are up there, but people who are still left on Earth, who are wondering, how are they doing? Are they going to come back alive? And just so many things that will happen in the future, But we've kind of created our own storyline. Who knows what the real storyline will be, but we had great help from NASA, actually, and NASA was on board with us doing the storyline, and Tommy had an open ear from them to pass things, say, is this correct? Is this the way it would be? And getting the facts behind how a mission like that would be approached before he finished writing it. He had to, he wanted it to be factual. He wanted to say, this is actually possible. And there's not a lot of detail that you will hear, but there are certain little things that were questionable to us, and so these guys became our friends. They come to our shows now. We have our own guest list from NASA in a lot of different cities, and it's been a blast.
I'll tell you, I didn't realize that you actually had consulting from NASA, and that is pretty amazing. And the way you just explained that to me, the concept is truly genius. When I started listening to this and going through all the information on this, I was like, wow, they really, really nailed it with this CD in many, many aspects, not just with the music itself, the whole storyline behind it. Another super cool tune and one of my favorite tracks is Radio Silence. Quickly, how did that song come about, and what was it like putting it together?
Well, you know what? Some of these things are things I would really love the listeners to just listen to as it unfolds. Radio Silence is kind of the obvious. You're up there, you're waiting to get your instructions and your marching orders and what's coming up next, and all of a sudden you're floating around in a tin can, and you need to hear a human voice. You need to hear some contact. You need to see on your screen in front of you some kind of instruction. And so there's those scary moments that happen in technology where things just go a little bit haywire. And so the radio silence is not really what you want. You want exactly the opposite. You want to hear something that gives you that strength to carry on and do what your mission requires. So that's the little kernel behind Radio Silence. And then, I encourage everybody to listen and figure out the storyline. I really do encourage people to actually read the liner notes and stuff, because it's very helpful. I was, even having been around the music, I didn't really understand all the threads that go through it. It's a fun ride.
Right now I want to touch upon another project of yours, and that is Ronnie Montrose 10 by 10. First, I would like to say I was very sad to hear about the passing of Ronnie. I loved his style of music, his sound, and all his contributions he made to the music world. What would you like to tell us about this CD, and how enjoyable was it for you to finish this for him? I think it was really awesome you did this, by the way.
Oh, thanks, Greg. I appreciate that. I didn't have a really close relationship with Mrs. Montrose until I took this on, but I had heard some rumblings that there were some people who were going to gather these initial tapes that Ronnie, myself, and Eric Singer made. We knew we had lightning in a bottle just from before there was a single vocal on them or any overdub of any kind. It was just the guitar, drums, and bass, and each track had some sort of magic to them that we recognized, and Ronnie was very excited about it. We tried to find a singer that could handle this material because it's kind of a little demanding, and we couldn't find a singer, and I got a call from Ronnie one day, and he said, look, you're getting really into with Styx, and Kiss is going back out, so I'm going to lose Eric as well, so I want to clear up a few things. He said, I have an idea, a concept I want to run by you, and I said, sure. He said, I'm thinking about us calling this 10 by 10 because it's our 10 tracks, and he said, with 10 different singers. And I said, okay. And the joke was always, great, Ronnie, but, we can't find one singer. How are we going to get 10 singers? And then he laughed and explained, no, what I'm talking about is I want to call Sammy, I want to call Edgar, I want to call my friend Greg Raleigh, who was in Santana and also started Journey with Neal Schon, Eric Martin from Mr. Big, who has been friends with Ronnie for a number of years, Mark Farner from Grand Funk, who is great friends with Ronnie, and so on. And of course, Davey Pattison, his singer from Gamma. Those people were approached before Ronnie passed, and they had begun their vocals on the record. And then Ronnie got ill, and he wasn't able to play guitar for a couple of years. He didn't even touch a guitar. But before he died, as a matter of fact, it was less than a month before he died, I had a great conversation with Ronnie. He told me how happy he was, how wonderful his life was. He said he'd been playing guitar, he had his chops back, he was really excited. The one thing he really wanted to do was finish 10 by 10. And then just a few weeks later, he was gone. And that's a separate topic and subject, but the one thing I realized was that in my last conversation with him, he explained how important it was for him to get 10 by 10 done. And Eric, basically as an ear, also as a voice as well, and I'm glad he was there. First he said to me, do you realize how much work is left to be done? That record is basically our basic tracks and a few vocals. And I said, yeah, I'm aware, but if somebody else gets their hands on it, they're just going to mess it up. So he said, well, if you'll do it, I'll do whatever I can to help. I don't know what I can do. And I said, well, let me start digging into it. And I'll try to condense this a bit. We started off recording in San Francisco at a studio that was graciously given to me to use, beautiful studio, but I was having to fly from around the country back to San Francisco, and it got to be very, very tedious. So one of those nights where I was just laying awake thinking of all the work I had to do and people I needed to get on this that were people Ronnie would have loved and approved of and would have wanted to be on this record, it hit me that before I was in Styx and I was doing full-time production, that my engineer, Bruce Gowdy, would be kind of a knight in shining armor here if I could get him to agree to do the project with me, because he and I work so well together and quickly. And with my studio here in Austin, Texas, and his studio in Los Angeles, we started doing Skype sessions. We would work for 5 and 6 hours from different cities, and he would say, why don't you put a B3 part on this like you did on such and such? Why don't you put a guitar on this or try that? And we'd bat things around like that. And I would do a bunch of work and then send him files to Los Angeles, and we ended up, it took us a number of years, took us a couple of years to get this thing done, but we were able to get a lot of really, really, really good work done. And the people that I brought in, like Glenn Hughes, who was a great friend of Ronnie's, and Phil Collin, who I brought in, and Steve Lukather, who had never worked with Sammy Hagar, and I asked Sammy, I said, what do you think of Steve Lukather? And he said, wow, can you get him? I said, absolutely. Luke and I have been friends for years. This thing started to happen. I called Edgar Winter, and I said, I'm thinking about, Ronnie didn't get to the solo on Love is an Art, which was the song that Edgar wrote and sings, and I said, I'm thinking about calling Rick Derringer and putting him on there, and I've got 3 of you guys from the Edgar Winter group all on one track. And Edgar loved that idea. I called Rick. Rick was on board, and everything started to unfold and started to happen. And if I couldn't be in a city where someone needed to record, I would set up a studio and a place for them to go. I gave everybody, the only instructions I really gave people who were coming in as a soloist was that, listen, this is for Ronnie Montrose. He liked your playing, and that's why I'm calling you. But please remember that Ronnie was a man who every note had a purpose. So don't give me a bunch of pyrotechnics and a bunch of just fancy, fast. I don't want to hear scales. I want to hear emotion. I want to hear who you are and the reason Ronnie liked your playing. And with that, I would let them go if I've listened in the room with them. And there were a couple guys made jokes at me. Okay, I didn't overplay. I did what you said, because guys do get in the studio and they just want to shred and show everybody what they can do. But Ronnie didn't believe in that. Ronnie believed that. Ronnie used to say, one of my favorite quotes from Ronnie was, a solo should be approached like sex. He said, you start off slow and you build to a frenzy. You don't start with a frenzy.
I love it.
And he liked things to develop and to pull people in, and then you maybe drop them off a cliff and then bring them back up. He really, really, I always encourage people, if they weren't familiar with Ronnie, to go look at YouTube videos of Ronnie playing Town Without Pity. There's some great stuff. He played with his whole body. He marched, and the neck of his guitar was being thrown all around as he was playing. He lived every moment that he was, with his entire body was an expression as he was performing. And that's the way it was in the studio. We didn't really rehearse. We had ideas and kernels of ideas and certain things. There's one song that I wrote, the rest really came from Ronnie. And then we wrote a lot of things together, but the initial concept came from Ronnie. And it was just one of those things where he said, okay, just follow me. And we had been working with Ronnie for a few years, so we knew his signals and when to stop and when to do certain things. And he directed us. As we were doing these basic tracks, we didn't use click tracks. Ronnie didn't believe in click tracks. He thought music, it should move. It isn't something that, for some reason, my producers started using click tracks and everything had to be perfectly in time. And he didn't believe in that. He thought, we breathe as humans. We walk at different paces. We do things in different speeds. And a song is emitting different emotions, and it should move accordingly. And I'm telling you, that's, I think, part of the magic on this record is that it's so alive. It's not just one straight tempo from beginning to end that never changes. Some of the breathing and things, it's subtle. Good musicians know how to keep good tempo and good time, but it does breathe in spots, and I think that is a really great tip that people could learn from Ronnie.
You've played and play with so many amazing artists, and the band Styx is one part of your legacy. What has it been like for you through the years playing with all these amazing and talented artists, and what would you say are a few of your highlights through your career before and during your time now with Styx?
I was really, as I was alluding to earlier, I was really fortunate that I was sleeping on couches in Hollywood. I had borrowed $20 in my pocket when I landed in LA, and I happened to audition for a band that was kind of a hotshot band that all the producers in town were trying to sign, but it was a little bit of more of a Yes meets the Beatles sort of band, and it was a little bit more techno than what was going on. Punk was coming on really strong, so it wasn't getting signed. But in one of the gigs I did play, I'd only been in LA for about 3 weeks, and the sound man for the Babies saw me perform and thought that I would be a great replacement for John Waite on bass, because John didn't want to play bass anymore. He just wanted to front the band and be more of a front man, focal point, and write songs and be able to deliver them as a vocalist without having to hold down the bass. So long story short, within a few months they found me, and I ended up touring with the Babies, and Jonathan Cain and I joined the band at the same time, and we had a great run. We had a couple great records that we did, and not to labor all the things that happened in the band, falling apart, but it was a great time and a great beginning, and I made a lot of friends and met a lot of people, from musicians to producers and all the way down. And so I started getting session work, and I started really kind of making a name for myself in that world, but I still really wanted to be in a band. A band was the most important thing to me. And when Jonathan Cain had left and, of course, gone to Journey, and he wrote all of those big, huge hits for a number of years, and I did a few tours and I did a few projects that I tried to get off the ground, but never was able to, take it to that place where, my past experience with the Babies and other people I was doing sessions for. Jonathan got a hold of me and said, look, Journey's going to split up. We're going to let it be known to the press that's going to happen. I want to have something ready and waiting. Are you in? And I said, absolutely. And a bunch of stuff happened that we couldn't have guided if we tried. But John Waite came into the picture again, the three of us having had been together in the Babies, and then bringing in Neal Schon obviously is just a huge move, and our chemistry, and we'd all known each other for over 10 years at this point. And we found Dean Castronovo, who was this sort of unknown, wonderful, great drummer who was perfect for what we were trying to do. And again, that was a great band. I think we had 5 top 40 singles off the first record we did, and shoot, it might even been 6 now that I think about about it because we had number one with on the rock chart and number one on the contemporary hit radio chart at the same time. So when you say what are some highlights, I think of being in Japan where we were on the road with Jeff Beck, and Jeff Beck to me is probably after Jimi Hendrix, I think he's my favorite living musician on this planet, and I'm just always in awe of how he has always reinvented himself from the very beginning and the things he does on guitar that are known only really to him. And so jamming with him in Japan with Neal Schon, Steve Lukather, John Waite, and I would come out in the encores and play Going Down with Jeff. That's a pinch me moment that I still can't believe happened. And then years later after Bad English, when David Coverdale called me and said, hey, Jimmy Page and I are doing a record. Would you be willing to come up and help us with Turiel? And we don't know what we're going to do. It might be a super group. We don't know who's going to be in the band, but we'd love it if you could come help us. Then them handed me plane tickets to go to Canada. They said, hey, we like what we're hearing. Let's just go up and let's cut. And Denny Carmassi, who is the drummer for Montrose, talk about a little spin right there. Always loved Denny, loved working with Denny. So here we were now doing this record with Jimmy and David. So there's a lot of cool things that have happened. I've been asked to, perform and be on records that people who I've just truly admired, learned a lot from, and hopefully gave them what they were looking for. And then the phone call from Tommy Shaw when he said, hey, we've been friends for all these years. When I was in the Babies, we toured with Styx in 79, as far back as 79.
Wow.
When he was in Damn Yankees, I was in Bad English. We were at functions, business functions, music functions, like say the Grammys, because everybody knows what the Grammys is, but things like that. We would always gravitate towards one another and hang. We always wanted to work together. So, hey, why don't you come do this? And so when Chuck Panazzo wasn't really able to physically do a full show anymore, that was 15 years ago I came in. So, yeah, I mean, I couldn't write this. I don't think that a guy like me who has, first of all, decided at an early age that this is what I needed to do and what I wanted to do, and I was willing to not eat for 2 and 3 days and sleep on couches to get there. I think you can't write your own script. It's life that just unfolds, and if you can't stay in a small town, you gotta put yourself in harm's way. Nobody's gonna come to Winnemucca, Nevada, and find you, no matter how good you're of a guitar player or a drummer or whatever you are, singer, whatever you are. You've got to go where you can be seen and be willing to maybe eat a lot of top ramen and peanut butter.
Well, I'll tell you, Ricky, it seems like you've had more than a fulfilling life, more than a fulfilling career. Real quick, I just want to ask one question about the tour. Styx is currently on tour as we speak, and you mentioned it earlier. What would you like to tell us about this tour, and especially the June 27th show in Boston?
Well, Boston is a special city. We love Boston. I mean, all of it. I mean, Todd Zuckerman went to school in Boston. It's just one of those magical, mystical. There's so much history there. The people are great. We toured with the band Boston. Come on. It's fun. I think when I saw that, I said that's where we're going to pick up and start this next run. I thought, wow, what a great place to go. So it'll be a great night. I mean, everybody is going to be refreshed and ready to dive back in and do this show because it is so much fun. But Boston has kind of a special place to all of us in the band, and there's a couple surprises I won't give away, but secret's kind of out. But we're doing a few things in the show that people will be surprised if they don't already know. And it's pretty heavy-handed. It's very prog. It's pretty big. And don't leave early. That's all I'm going to say.
Sweet. Yeah. You heard him, people. Don't leave early. All right, Ricky. Well, listen, I want to take the time right now. We've gone way over, and I know you have other commitments. I want to personally thank you for taking the time for speaking to us here at NECR. NECR thanks you, and I'll tell you, man, it seems like you got a lock on everything. I wish you the best with it all. Styx, Montrose, 10x10, the tours, your own personal projects, because it seems like you've really worked hard and succeeded very well with the way you've told and developed your own story. So I thank you again. I wish you nothing but the best, and good luck with it all. Good luck with this upcoming leg of the tour, and good luck with the Mission and Montrose 10x10, and thank you again.
Thank you, Greg. It's great talking to you, and anytime, man. Anytime, pick up the phone.
All right, sounds good, Ricky.
All right, buddy. Take care of yourself.
You too, man.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Ladies and gentlemen, that was none other than the electric and magical. Bass player vocalist for the band Styx, Mr. Ricky Phillips. Styx has a new CD called The Mission. Check it out. It really is great. The storyline behind the whole CD is awesome. They did a fabulous job with this. And don't forget, they're on tour June 27th, Boston, Styx. And he also is coming out with, had another project that he worked on, Ronnie Montrose 10x10. Check that out. A lot of amazing artists on that CD. And that's going to wrap it up for yet another one here at NECR. And for me, this is Greg for NECR New England Concert Reviews. And I'll be back at some point once again. I'm out of here. Later. Peace.